everybody, it's Cynthia again. I am back with another card using my same Wavy Coloring Book background stamp from My Favorite Things. And in my previous video, I inked this up and did some gold heat embossing on a dark paper, so that one turned out pretty. If you haven't seen that one, you can, I'll include a link at the end of this video to that one. So today I want to try something different, and I am going to do a little bit of a watercoloring technique. So I have cut down a piece of the cold pressed Strathmore watercolor paper, and currently it's 4.5 by 6 inches. So I decided this has kind of a smooth side and also a more textured side. So I'm actually going to use the more textured side. So hopefully I will get a clean impression. But the first thing I'm going to do is lay this down and ink it up with my Versamark. And you can use clear embossing powder or white, but since the paper is basically white, it's not a crisp snow white, but it's a nice soft white, I'll just use clear. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this nice and inky all over the place. I'm going to check it in the light, make sure everything looks nice and wet. Alright. And I think I will go ahead and treat the surface. I'd rather be safe than sorry. So I'm just using my anti-static bag and going over the whole surface of that paper. And then I'm just going to lay it face down. And the paper hangs off the edge of this stamp just slightly, but that's okay because I'm going to trim it down anyway. I left it a little larger than I needed on purpose so that when I'm doing my painting, I can tape the paper down. So you'll see that in just a moment. And then because the surface of the paper is slightly textured, I want to be super careful to really make contact between the paper and the stamp. I have a brayer. I never think to use it. Let me grab that. So I can also just press evenly down with my brayer. That's another good way, as long as you don't let the paper shift. Alright, squeaky squeaky. Okay, so now I'm going to lift up, and I can very faintly see the impression. I doubt highly that you can, but it is there. So then, should have had this ready. I'm going to grab, this is Simon Says Clear Fine, Simon Says Stamp Fine Detail Clear Embossing Powder. And the fine detail is nice because that stamp has some very fine lines to it. And for this technique to be completely successful, you really want your stamping and your heat embossing to be as flawless as you can get it. So I'm just generously putting some on there, and then I'm going to tip it and let the powder run. I don't know if you can see this. Sorry if I'm off screen. And of course you can do, I'm going to have to do this more than once, which is fine. I'm trying to keep my fingers away from the surface as much as possible. Do just a little more to make sure. I did this once before with another background stamp from MFT, and it turned out so beautiful. I'm going to have to try it again with a different stamp to show you how they turned out. So I'm going to take all my extra powder, tip it back into the container, take that out. It's always a good idea to clean as you go, and then also close up your powder, because you could so easily spill, and you do not want to do that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn on my heat tool, let it warm up, and then melt this powder down. So I don't know if you can see, as the light hits this, all that shine. So all of that is the melted clear embossing powder. And the thing that that clear is going to do for us is it will, since it's on top of the white paper, it'll preserve that white color underneath. And so as I add watercolor paint to this panel, all of the embossed areas are going to resist it, and it'll really make that pattern pop out. So it's a very pretty effect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape this down, and I can see right where the edge of my stamping ends, and I just want to make sure that I tape that down as flat as I can. The paper's a little puckered from being heated up. So let's see. And I just want to make sure that I am securing it flat, and then also letting that tape run over the edges here. I don't want it to be too short. And again, I'm going to trim it down, but I don't want to waste any of it if I can help it. Now these sides I'm going to do a little narrower. Uh-oh, see, I didn't quite get to the end. I'm going to really overlap it well, because you'd be surprised how the watercolor will seep under edges. So I'll make sure this one's long enough. Alright, and this is just a little wooden cutting board that I picked up at Bed Bath & Beyond, and it's a nice heavy wooden board, and it works really well because it's going to help keep this watercolor paper flat while I get it wet. Alright, cool. So I do have actual watercolor paints, but I'm not going to get those out. I'm just going to go ahead and use some of my distress inks. And I have a lot of colors, so this could really be anything that you wanted it to be. But I am extremely partial to the peacock feathers. So I think I'm going to do something pretty intense. I'm going to go ahead and use peacock feathers and Mermaid Lagoon. And of course you can do whatever you want, and you can add multiple colors, but I don't know that I want to go that far. Alright, so let me get something here out of the way. Alright, so now I've got, this is my largest acrylic block here for stamping, and I want that nice plastic surface. And I'm going to get myself a paintbrush, and I want something pretty big, because I'm just going to kind of mop on some color and just really let it do its thing. You know, I'm not going to force it. You can be as controlled as you want or not. So I just have my spray bottle of water here. I should have a glass, but I don't. So anyway, let me just go ahead And now I'm just focusing on wetting down my paper. So I doused it well, and I'm going to use the brush. Oh dear, this is a poor quality brush, isn't it? Anytime my daughter gets a little paint set or art kit or whatever, the minute she loses interest, I grab the paintbrush. And so, you know, they're just generic kid quality brushes, so they lose their bristles. But generally they're okay for crafting. I mean, this is just a card front, not a submission to a gallery. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of keep my surface somewhat under control. Then I'm going to take my little ink pad, and I'm just going to actually squish the surface of the ink pad right onto my acrylic block. And that's just going to leave behind some nice ink. So I'm going to treat this ink like it's paint. So I have a little of both, and I'm going to add some water to each pile. And I'll start with the peacock feathers because it is lighter, if you will. And there is a lot of water on my card, but that's okay. So now I'm just going to kind of just randomly start adding color into my panel. And what it's going to do is the paint color is going to start finding its way into all the nooks and crannies between the embossed areas. Now I'm dipping into that other color, which is bluer. It's like a really beautiful cobalt blue, and of course the peacock feathers has that green in it. This is so fun because you kind of feel like you're painting, but you don't have to have any painting experience at all, which is very nice. Now some areas of this stamp are very dense with pattern, so the color doesn't want to go in there. You have to kind of force it in. So, and of course I'm letting the colors blend together too. Since they're pretty similar, they'll blend very nicely. So fun, fun, fun. And it's nice when you wet your paper first and then you add your paint on it, everything just starts to flow really well. And that can be good. You want it to move and play and mix and all of that good stuff. All right. Cool. Got another little piece of brush hair. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and I'm actually going to let this sit and air dry because of the fact that I already heat embossed it. I could use my heat tool to coax it along, but I don't think I'm going to because it'll reactivate that embossing powder and I don't want to overcook it. And the neat thing is that when I come back to it, we will see if we want to add any more color. So I'll be back in a little while and we'll go on to the next step. Okay, so I am back after this is now dry, and I'm really happy with how intense the color ended up. I wasn't sure if maybe I'd need to do a second coat, but I'm really pleased with the way this looks. And there's a lot of variation in it, lighter and darker spots, which is just what I wanted. So I don't want to risk ruining that by doing a second coat. So now I'm just going to go ahead and carefully peel back the edges of my tape. And you can see that it left a white border where it was covered, which is fine. And there was a little bit of seepage just in some tiny spots, but that can happen. And I wasn't trying to preserve that white, so that's okay. And I want to try to do this without tearing my paper, so I'm going, carefully, slowly, pulling at a steep angle to keep the tape intact. And that discourages it from tearing your watercolor paper. And even though it was on the board, this page does have definitely some warping to it. But again, it's watercolor paper, and that's to be expected. And it was really saturated, so naturally that little bit of bumpiness is normal. But one of the little tricks I like to do is I'm actually going to run this between I'm just sandwiching it between my two plastic plates, and I'm going to roll it through my die cutting machine. And I'm not cutting it, I just simply want to really apply that pressure to help flatten it out. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm also going to take this set of Tags and Labels Framelits dies. This is offered through Stampin' Up! And I will include an order number down on the bottom of the screen. But in here, there's a variety of different tags and labels. So I'm just going to take the largest of this shape with these indented corners. And I'm going to cut a little piece out of just some more of the, what is this? The Neenah Solar White. And I'm just going to cut a piece out here and flatten this, and I will be right back. Okay, I think that pressure really did help reduce some of the largest warping there. So I'm going to put my die away. I learned a long time ago when I lost one of my dies, oh my gosh, and I could not find that thing for, I don't know, probably a week, and it was terrible. So I just vowed at that moment, always put your die away immediately after using it. In the long run, you'll be much happier. All right, so here's my little piece that I just die cut. It's really cute. And the Distress inks I find to be fabulous for all kinds of techniques, and obviously as far as using them like a paint, it's tremendous. But if I'm just going to do some word stamping, I really prefer to use a different ink, just a standard ink pad. So this is the Simon Says Stamp Audrey Blue, which is really going to go well with the tones in those other two colors. And then I pulled a stamp from the My Favorite Things All Occasion Sentiments set, which I showed in my previous video. And I'm going to use the Best Wishes, which is right here. And I could trim them apart. It doesn't hurt your photopolymer stamps to trim them, but I decided that I'm just going to cover up the wishes portion, and because I want to stamp them one on top of another. So I'm just going to ink up the word best with the Audrey Blue, and I just want to make sure, since it's the first time I'm using this stamp, I'm going to make sure I get a real good coverage of ink. And be sure to pull off your tape And then I'm going to center this the best I can. Simon Says stamp inks are very beautiful, very rich, very pigmented inks. They do stain your stamps, so don't be alarmed by that. But when they're fully dry, they are just lovely. Really, really rich color. And they're fabulous also for sponging techniques. I've done a lot of sponging with my Simon Says stamp inks. So here is another piece, and this time I'm just going to cover up the best. Ink up the wishes. Actually, better bring my stamp to the pad instead of vice versa. But yeah, when you have a sentiment like this that's kind of long and it's going to be too wide to fit where you want it, you can either do what I'm doing, or like I said, you can carefully trim your stamp. And then if you want them to be long again, you just lay them out the way they're intended to be. So it does not hurt your stamps to do that. So best wishes. And again, I'm not using my stamp pad. Oh dear. I should, but I'm not. Alright. Try to get that off of there. Wow, that was sticky. Okay, cool. I think that looks good. And like I said, it'll be blotchy for just a moment, but it'll dry, settle down nice and smooth for me. Alright. So, let me give that a moment to set up. And then I'm going to get my little guillotine cutter, and I want this to be on the front of my card, and I think I'm going to cut it just down 1/4 inch from the card size. So it's an A2 card size, and here it is here. It's a top folding card, and it's just 4.5 by, or excuse me, 4 1/4 by 5.5. And so I want this piece to be 4 inches by 5 1/4. So I'm going to take a little bit off the sides evenly, or roughly evenly, to get down to what I want. And the reason I'm using my guillotine is because of the fact that this is watercolor paper, which is a little bit thicker, and also it's been heat embossed, and so that plastic makes it a little bit thicker, and I don't want to use my delicate paper trimmer. It'll just put unnecessary pressure on the blade. So this works nicely. And then I said, what, 5 1/4? So it'll be, remember I'm starting off with a 6-inch length, so more of this will come off now. And I prefer, oh gosh, both ends are pretty. I think I'll focus more on this end. So roughly 5 1/4. All right, very cute. So now that it has nice, just clean edges. And now I get to decide which piece I want up. Maybe it'll depend on the sentiment where I want that to sit. I'll probably, I don't know if I want it down. Kind of like it down a little bit in the corner like that. Or turn it like this and put this here. I don't know. I like all the intensity of this color, so I think I'm going to do it this way because I don't want to accidentally cover up all of that. I love this here as well, but there's very similar shading here in this curve, so. All right. So I am going to very thoroughly tape the back of this because the paper is kind of curled. And it's okay because, you know, it is a painted piece and it is watercolor paper. And trust me when I tell you, the recipient of the card is not going to be focused on that. Hopefully they'll be admiring the colors and the fact that you made it. So let me get this into place. I'm still tired from all the holiday festivities, so, you know, have you ever gotten so tired that you really can't sleep well, if that makes sense? That's kind of how I've been since Christmas. I was a trifle hungover after New Year's, which never happens. And really, I didn't have that much to drink, but I was drinking strawberry daiquiris. So I had this strange headache when I woke up the next day, and I told my husband, I go, honey, what does a hangover feel like? I might have a slight one. So we were laughing about it, but anyway, okay, so here is the card base, here is the sentiment, and again, this is going to be pretty simple and straightforward, but we really want to focus on this pretty watercolored piece. We don't want to distract too much from the look of it. So one thing I'll do is reach for my humongous roll. And you know, it's funny, I resisted getting this for the longest time. And when I was purchasing my 4th small roll, I'm like, what am I doing? You know, I'm spending actually more buying all these small rolls that don't last. So I saw this actually at the office supply store, and it was $40, but that was $5 less than the online price, and I didn't have to pay shipping. So I just bit the bullet, spent my $40, and I've had this thing for almost a year now. So I would say it was worth it. So again, I'm going to focus on the bottom right, get this basically straight. Aw, best wishes, isn't that sweet? And this is just calling out to me for embellishment. Kind of cute. All right, so that is my little best wishes card, and really the technique that I was focusing on, of course, was doing the embossing and then showing you how nice it is to watercolor on it after you've done that, because having that raised embossing creates these little nooks and channels for that watercolor paint to just sit in there, and it's just a really neat effect. And the other cards that I did, I will show you in a different video, because I think I'll make one like that again and show you how I did it. So anyway, it's a fun technique, so look through your stash of stamps, see if you have something like this with a nice pattern, and try this technique yourself. I think you're going to be really pleased with the way it turns out, and I promise you, you do not need to know how to paint, so don't let that stop you. Okay, so thanks so much for sitting with me. I had a lot of fun again. I appreciate everybody who has been clicking like and commenting and becoming a subscriber. That's wonderful. So welcome in. I'm looking forward to doing all kinds of things in 2017. There'll be different crafts that I'm going to share with you. There's going to be different series. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope you are too. So in the meantime, you guys have fun crafting and take care. Bye-bye.